Hello everyone, my name is Miguel Castillo, and today I will be giving my research proposal in which I will be analyzing 1984 by George Orwell and The Pedestrian by Ray Bradbury. Both of these works speak to me in how they explore what happens when individuality and freedom are crushed by systems of control. In 1984, we can see this in the politics that are on display throughout the story. While in The Pedestrian, we can see this through the impact technology is having on the society that is being shown to us. My working thesis is that in both 1984 and The Pedestrian, individuality becomes a quiet form of rebellion for the characters that we are observing. In George Orwell's story, Winston Smith resists Big Brother's totalitarian control by simply thinking freely and keeping a secret diary where he writes all of his ideas, something that is forbidden in the confines of his reality. While in Ray Bradbury's story, Leonard Mead defies a society addicted to television by doing something as simple as walking outside at night. Both authors warn that when conformity replaces curiosity and when technology replaces human connection, we lose something that makes us human, something that connects us to our reality. Now, there are three main ideas I want to explore in my essay. First of which is going to be the ideas of isolation and conformity. In 1984, Winston lives in a world where the government watches everything he does and everyone else. Even his thoughts are policed by the people in power, and they're made to believe that this figure, known as Big Brother, is controlling every aspect of what is happening. He's isolated because everyone around him is too afraid to think differently and to have their own ideas, their own opinions, what makes them unique to each other. Instead, they are built to conform around a certain way of acting, in speaking, and in thinking, something that their government polices throughout the entirety of the story. While in The Pedestrian, Leonard Mead walks through the empty streets where we can see that everyone is in their houses, just glued to their screens, watching television while the world around them plays out, while nature grows where they are not living in. Instead, they are stuck, encapsulated in these fabricated worlds, these television screens. Both characters are completely alone in their stance, and that loneliness shows how dangerous conformity can be when no one dares to be different, when no one dares to go outside of the mold. Now, for my second main idea, I wanted to talk about something that connects these two stories, which is technology and control. In Orwell's story, technology is used to enforce obedience. Telescreens that spy on everyday citizens, and teleprompters that give out these fabricated stories, or not so fabricated, for the citizens of this world, where we can see Big Brother is always watching and things like that. Things that keep these people static in this situation that they're in, where they are constantly being observed and controlled by the people on top. While in Bradbury's story, technology doesn't punish people, but instead numbs them to reality. Everyone's so distracted by their viewing screens that they've stopped living in the real world, in their real lives. Both writers are showing how technology can quickly take over humanity by removing our ability to think and feel for ourselves, by removing our individuality. Finally, I want to talk about two of these last points, which is something that we come up with as we go through these stories, and something that really does show, especially in things like 1984 and The Pedestrian. And those ideas are going to be freedom and rebellion. Winston's rebellion is secret. He keeps it to himself, writing his thoughts in his diary and just keeping his thoughts going as a way to rebel against his oppressors, which is something that he ends up surrendering at the end of his story. While Leonard's rebellion is quite simple. He's just walking outside, something that not a lot of people do anymore, if not any, and even his life kind of represents this form of rebellion and freedom that he is taking from his societal norms, where when he's approached by this police officer, his entire life seems suspicious because it's so different from what they are made or programmed to think life is supposed to be. His job is untraditional, what he's doing isn't something normalized, and his lifestyle where he's not married is also thought of as strange. Both acts are powerful in their own way and in their own worlds, as they show that freedom doesn't always come from huge revelations, but sometimes starts with one person refusing to give up what makes them individual, what makes them unique. Now, I decided to do some research on both of the authors and how they might have had their ideas reflected in their works from the worlds that they were living in during the times that they had been writing these. George Orwell, whose real name was Eric Blair, wrote 1984 right after World War II, and he saw these totalitarian powerhouses and governments like Hitler's Germany and Stalin's Soviet Union use propaganda and surveillance to control people. Orwell used these ideas that he had seen in real life and turned those fears into fiction, creating a world where even thinking the wrong thing could get you killed, showing his fear in the reality of the situation that the world was in at the time and how this propaganda was affecting him and the people around him. Now, Ray Bradbury wrote The Pedestrian in early 1950s, a time when television was becoming a major part of American life. He was worried that people were spending so much time in front of their screens that they were forgetting how to live, how to talk, and even think for themselves. You can really see that anxiety in Leonard Mean's loneliness, how he's so isolated in where he stands doing these things thought of to be normal in the time that Ray Bradbury was in, but that he could see the world was losing even back then. Both writers were responding to the worlds in which they lived in, Orwell to political oppression and Bradbury to cultural distraction. But their messages overlap. They both ask what happens when society stops valuing the individuality of people, and what happens when we ourselves stop valuing that individuality as well. For my analysis, I'm using something called the sociocultural approach. I chose this lens because it helps me connect each of these stories to its historical and social context. 1984 reflects the fear of political control, the loss of freedom after the war that was World War II, while The Pedestrian reflects the fear of technology making us passive and disconnected, something that we can see in The Pedestrian and many other stories that were taking place during the time where technology was growing at such a rapid pace, especially when it came to televisions and things of that nature. This approach helps me, at least, explore how Orwell and Bradbury used fiction to comment on their societies and to warn readers about where the world might be heading if we stopped questioning authority and technology and just conformed to what we were being given. Overall, my project will focus on how both stories, even though they were written in different times, deliver the same warning. When we give up thinking for ourselves, we give up our humanity. Thank you for your time.